David Carr. I'm the creator of BlueBroward.org, a website offering free organizing tools for Broward Democrats. I'm here today with Linda Bird of the Hillary Clinton campaign in Broward. She's going to tell us why this is the right campaign for you to support in 2016 and how you can contribute. I do want to give a little bit of context first about what I'm doing and why. I have gotten some remarks about, should BlueBroward be taking sides in a primary? That's not what I'm doing. The BlueBroward website has existed in one form or another since late 2004, following what I certainly consider to be the heartbreak of the re-election of George W. Bush. So I was looking for something productive I could do to promote better organization for future elections. And this is what I came up with, a website for publishing information about events in particular. It's probably best known for the calendar and the email roundup of events that goes out every Sunday. Here's the event that we're participating in now, and there's some Bernie events a little bit farther down the page. So all viewpoints are represented. But every election year, I look for something new to do that would be hopefully productive. And this is my idea for 2016. I'm trying to do a series of these webinars. I do have an invitation out to the Sanders campaign to do an event similar to this. We'll see what kind of audience we get. We hope it'll be productive. And these events will also be available for replay on YouTube. So that in itself may be worthwhile. And I'm looking for suggestions also of other guests to feature. If this does draw an audience, I'd like to do it a few times a month, maybe, for the balance of the year. And I come from a lot of people know me as the techie, the guy who starts websites, but I come from more of a journalistic and communications background. In some ways, I'm more comfortable interviewing people, asking questions. So I'm going to be doing some of that with Linda. And I haven't decided who I'm going to support. So I'm going to be your proxy. Those of you who are still a little wobbly about which campaign you're going to fall into, I'm your man. I'm going to ask your questions along the way today. And I am interested in also this medium and using it productively. We're using something called Google Hangouts on Air, which is a free video broadcast service offered by Google. It's associated with the YouTube service. When it first came out, you had to be world famous. So the Black Eyed Peas and Obama did early Hangouts on Air, and now they've opened it up to everybody. So this is a tool that we can use for discussion, for training, for a lot of things. If you're watching the live stream of this program on YouTube, you won't be able to ask questions unless you click the Be Part of the Conversation link down the bottom. That'll bring you over into the Google Hangouts on Air program. I will tell you that it works better if you're using Google Chrome. As your browser, you need a Google Plus account, and there's a plugin to install. And if that sounds like too much of a hassle, it was a little bit of too much of a hassle when I was trying to set this up with Linda the other day, which is why we're in the same place at the same time. But we're happy to have people as part of the YouTube viewing audience as well. And if you are in the Google Hangout session, though, you should see a space over to the right side of the screen where you can ask a question. So you click the button at the bottom, you type in your question, and we'll answer it live. So back to our guests. I met Linda Bird when we were both involved with a group called the Democratic Professionals Council, which late lamented. I wish it was still around, but it's not. It was a business organization for business people who were interested in democratic politics, as opposed to the Chamber of Commerce, which tends to a little bit more to the right. And I was the webmaster. I was trying to organize events and gather RSVPs, some of the similar things that I do through BlueBroward. and Linda was the Broward Chair at that time. And I know she's been a long time supporter of Hillary's. She was a big backer of Hillary in the 2008 election. She was also one of the people who steered folks around to backing Obama when that was the outcome of the primary season. So if you remember 2008, there was this big worry, you know, will people who supported Hillary be so alienated that they'll stay home and sit on their hands? People are having that same discussion about Hillary and Bernie this year. So we need a Democratic victory. I mean, the Republican candidates this year are way beyond the pale. We can't deal with that. So we have got to have a Democratic victory. We've got to come together in the end. And that's very important. So this year, Linda is in it to win it for Hillary, and I'm going to give her an opportunity before I actually have some skeptical questions to ask along the way because I haven't made up my mind yet either. But I'm going to give Linda a chance to explain why she is so enthusiastic about the Hillary Clinton campaign and some things about how you can help.
Well, thank you, David. I really appreciate it. I have to say, we have worked together on previous events and previous organizations to build Broward County into a Democratic strong force. We want to deliver Broward County by the highest margin ever, you know, and one of the things that we did in the past, we started the Democratic Professionals Council. We had about 150 to 250 people come once a month to the Riverside Hotel, and we featured guest speakers from congressional delegation as well as local and state officials, and it was highly productive because we all had a chance to learn what's going on in our local, state, and national politics. And we all have to get involved. And that was the reason that we started the Democratic Professionals Council. And thank you to David and the BlueBroward. I mean, a wonderful way to get the messaging out there, because as it turned out, more and more people became involved, and more people became involved on the not only the grassroots level, but the leadership level. And we actually grew a lot of people from 2008 who are now very involved and have been involved for the last 8 years. So I'm thrilled to come back and see that, you know, leadership roles have been nurtured through all of our past endeavors. And so it was just fabulous. But anyway, back to the Hillary campaign, you know, because this is why we're here today. And I'm so excited to be a part of this. And I'm thrilled that we're going to be able to replay it on YouTube for future audiences, because this is going to be a very important election in 2016. We all have to put in as much effort as possible. This is not something that we can take as an easy effort. This is going to be one that we're going to have to everyone pull through and give our best. And one of the things that we found, you know, this year, you know, already we've seen the attacks coming at both of our Democratic candidates, and we have to be there to support them, to be there to provide the volunteer efforts that are going to be needing to get them elected. So I'm thrilled to be a part of this. And the reason why I'm for Hillary, I can tell you right from the very beginning, you know, I have a lot of things that I can relate with Hillary because her values are the same as my values. And I have to say that, you know, when she was born in a middle-class family in Chicago, you know, her father was a small business owner and he was a veteran. My dad was a veteran. My mom worked, you know, while I was growing up to help as a two-income family to make sure that we had the necessities of life, you know, and Hillary has not forgotten where she's from. In fact, one of the things that I laugh about is I went to an event one time and there was Hillary and Bill and Tipper and Al, and they said, "We dance with the ones that brung us." And that's important because they never forgot where they came from. So their values about having grown up in a small middle-class home and their dad being a veteran, you know, and their mother, her mother, who was Dorothy, had a really tough childhood. And basically, she had been abandoned by her family, and she was raised by her grandparents, and she worked as a housekeeper, and all the way through high school. So if you can imagine, the influence that she had and he had on Hillary's life. When she was in high school, she was president of the Young Republicans, as a matter of fact, which I was like, oh my goodness. But it was because of the influence of her father, and the bottom line was, she
People
was
do
also
get born into it. Right?
Yes. Also, she was influenced by her youth minister. She was raised as a Methodist, and I'm a Methodist woman myself, and her faith brought her to different events. Well, he wanted her to have the exposure. He actually took her to see Martin Luther King when she was in high school. And what a major impact that had on her life. And then as she got into college, she went to Wellesley. And when she got into college, she started rethinking her concerns and how her political life how her values affected her political life. And she was saying how she could best lift up more people. Because basically, with coming from a family like that, she knew what it was like to have to put her all the way through school, and with the help of scholarships. And she went on to Yale Law School, which, again, coming from a middle-class family, this was among a lot of people who were not only privileged, but she had opened her horizons a little bit larger, but she never forgot where she came from. As a matter of fact, when she graduated from law school, she could have gone to any of the largest law firms in the United States, but she chose to work for the Children's Defense Fund. And this was, again, to be an advocate for the rights of children, families, and working women. And, the bottom line was she could have made her life so much easier, but she decided to live out her values and do what she had grown up learning, how to make an impact on lives of others. So that's why I really, really like the platform that Hillary has put forward. And to be honest with you, she didn't stop there. She went on as she became the first lady of the United States. In Arkansas, she saw that that there are a lot of people who, in Arkansas was like rated at the lower end of the education spectrum. And she made sure that the schools were improved as she became First Lady of Arkansas. And then when she became First Lady of the United States, of course, all of us know, when she went to China and she was in front of Beijing and she said, women's rights are human rights and human rights are women's rights. And that took a lot of courage because, she was in front of an audience that wasn't supportive, in fact, it was courageous of her to stand up there and do that.
Do I remember right that you were involved with Bill Clinton's campaign as well?
Yes, yes, I was. Okay. As a matter of fact, I have a funny story because I kind of go all the way back to when Gore was, farther back to when at the very beginning. And I have to say that my daughter was in 4th grade and all of the kids in her class were for Bush. Mm-hmm. And I was for Clinton. And of course, Kristen, my daughter, who is now 33, she was for Clinton. And she was the only one in her class that voted for Clinton. Mm-hmm. And she, so when, after Clinton won and everybody was, thrilled about it, except for her classmates, saw her go to Washington, D.C. and they said, hey, you know what, maybe we should rethink this. By the time she was in 8th grade, all the kids were for Clinton on the second re-election. So it just says, we have a long history with the Clintons and we can trust them. I mean, that's the last time we had really peace and prosperity. We had, the economy was strong and it was because of his leadership. He was able to reach across the aisle and he was able to work with both sides to get things done.
Were you paying attention to Hillary back then? I mean, did you really connect with her in that phase? I mean, she wasn't the candidate at that point, right?
Right. But as a woman who has always been a person in her own right, she was the first lady, and she was one of the first people after Eleanor Roosevelt to actually get really important issues under her belt. I mean, she took the healthcare, reform to the Congress. And she has the scars to show for it, but she had the courage to go forward and try to make that work because she understood that a lot of people needed health care at the time. So she wasn't just sitting back at home making cookies. She was out there, even though, as a mother, she was raising a young daughter, a very strong woman now. Chelsea is, has grown into a very strong woman, but she gave time to her family, but she also made time for the issues that were important to America, even as First Lady. And of course, from there, she went on to become, a senator. And in her own right, she actually, pulling back from her history, she was supporting veterans, and she expanded TRICARE to include, the National Guard and reservists. And, my dad was a military retiree. And TRICARE is one of the things that has helped my mother, who is a yellow dog Democrat. Do you know what a yellow dog Democrat is?
It is Southern Democrat, basically.
Yeah, it's a Southern Democrat, but a Southern yellow dog Democrat will vote for a yellow dog before they'd ever vote for a Republican. She's a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat.
Okay, as opposed to there's a blue dog Democrat too.
Yeah, that's a conservative Democrat. But a yellow dog Democrat is all the way Democrat.
Okay.
But my dad was retired military, and my mother, as a widow, was able to get involved with TRICARE, which is one of the programs that Hillary expanded for veterans. And thank goodness for that. It provided, help with her prescriptions, help with her health care. It's the other 20% of Medicare.
Right. I see some questions coming in. I'm not ignoring you. We'll get to them in a few minutes. I just want to let Linda unravel her prepared spiel here.
And why I want to make sure that she gets elected. Because, not only did she, when she was up against Obama, who I dearly love, she spent a good, amount of time on the trail going to every state in the union, and where she nurtured infrastructure in every state, and that we can depend upon. And that's going to be very helpful in this election, because this is going to be an election where guns are going to come up blazing, and we have to have every state highly organized, and we have to have every volunteer doing as much as they can, because, even as an individual, you have an opportunity to have a sphere of influence around you. And it's so important that, you use that opportunity with conversation starters. I mean, there's so many things that you and Hillary have in common, and that I and Hillary have in common, that I can use for conversation starters. And some of the things are some of that we've discussed already about her background, her values, but also the fact that, her foreign policy, she is so far educated than any of the other people who are running for this office. And we have got to, in this kind of day and time, to be on top of what's happening in the world. And she expanded our worldview. And a lot of people came back and started seeing America as leaders again. So I'm just thrilled to be a part of the Hillary campaign, and anything that I can do to help her win, I'm going to do. And I encourage everybody in the audience to try to do as much as they can as well.
Okay, great. Well, we do have a couple of questions that came in from online, so we'll at least touch on them. I think it's Doreen says that the majority of atheists support Bernie Sanders. How will Hillary win over these atheists? I mean, it's not an easy question to answer, but do you have any thought on that? Or?
I think that, the basis of all atheists feel that, you are on this earth to do as much good as you possibly can. And I believe that Hillary also feels that. In fact, her, even though her faith also dictates that she is to reach out and help as many people as possible, I think it's on a parallel track to what atheists believe in terms of helping other people, and you only have one lifetime to do it in. And so there are opportunities that everyone can help. But if you have people who are on the other side who are running for against Hillary and Bernie, you're going to see that their policies are not really to help other people. It's more of a philosophy. If I got mine,
and are also more likely to be kind of theocratic. if you look at Ted Cruz, he's definitely going after the right-wing religious vote. So
yes, but the bottom line is, the Republican feeling is more like, I got mine, you get yours, okay? And they don't want to help other people. They want to keep what they have, and the top echelon has made it big. And, I do a lot of charity work in Broward County.
Right.
And one thing that I found is that, the people that are into the charities in Broward County, they're saying, well, I'll give you a portion, what I feel is necessary. I feel that it's important that we educate all the people in the United States so that we raise all boats, so that it's not just how much do we want to personally give to someone. We want someone to be able to lift themselves up as well by providing services and the background so that they can be stronger, and then in turn they can raise stronger families. And I believe that that's what Hillary and the Democratic Party is trying to do for America, So I think you're right. All of us need to focus on the fact that whether we're Christian or we're atheists, we all want to lift up and do the most we can for others.
Okay. And I also had a question about what will Hillary do to promote a pathway for immigrants to become legal citizens?
Well, Hillary will be offering the law-abiding immigrant families a path to full and equal citizenship. And she's going to also try to protect and continue the DACA and the DAPA programs to keep the families together. When I hear Trump make his statements that he wants to tear families apart, he wants to send families over to the Mexican border, it's just ridiculous. How can you possibly pay for that kind of deportation of 11 million people in the United States? It just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
It makes more sense to work with our families that are here and have them become productive and tax-paying citizens in the United States, because they are already our friends, they're our neighbors, they're people down the street that we work with. So, let's try to do something more realistic.
Right. Okay. I'm going to ask one of my skeptical-ish questions, and then I'm going to give you an opportunity to talk more about specific volunteer opportunities. But you talked about the Clintons are folks that we can trust, and I think some folks would differ with that assertion. And also, I think there is sort of a tradition of drama about the Clintons. The Monica Lewinsky scandal may not have been a legitimate reason for impeachment hearings, but it was an unnecessary drama. It was a self-inflicted wound. The email server thing, some of that's kind of stupid, but it's an unforced error. And I do recall that one of the Obama campaign sort of informal slogans was "No drama, Obama." Was that we're going to have less of these sideshows by getting away from the Clinton family. Does any of that stuff bother you, or why, or what outweighs it?
Well, I feel like Hillary is her own person. Okay, I don't feel that she's responsible for any of the transgressions that happened with Bill. Right. And I think that, that is the past, and it's a very personal issue that they've had to deal together with, and, perhaps get professional help in dealing with why he did what he did when he did it. But the bottom line is, she is her own person. And as a professional woman myself, I don't want people to paint me with the same brush as something that someone in my family may have done. Secondly, about the email situation, I think that Hillary, is a woman who tried to use the most convenient avenue to get the work done, because, she's like a lot of us, we're doing a lot of juggling, and as Secretary of State, there's a lot of that was on her plate. She was traveling heavily, and it was just a little bit more convenient. But in hindsight, as they said on Saturday Night Live, don't ever do that. When she had a chance to talk to her future self, or the person of her past, she said, no, don't ever do that. So the bottom line is, I don't think intentionally she wanted to do any harm to the confidentiality of any of the important information, and none of the information was classified at the time that she, was discussing it with the people. But that's up to
we don't have to debate the whole issue. I'm asking more sort of why personally you set that aside, and I'm not asking you to make the legal case for it.
Okay. But as a voter, I'm looking at, who is going to be the person that's going to help us in the future? Who's going to help the America?
Right.
Who's going to help my personal family become more successful? Who's going to give us the tools to make sure that we can be competing in the world view? Who's going to be respected in the world? I look at all of those things as a heavier weight. If I'm weighing that to me is the most important thing. I know that I'm looking at the alternatives on the Republican side, and oh my gosh, we can be in a lot of trouble very quickly if some of these people get elected. But I think on the positive side, Hillary has, really talked about raising incomes again for all people. She's actually trying to fight for the minimum wage now. She's going to try to guarantee equal pay for equal work. She's going to encourage profit sharing. She is going to fight for women. She wants to, as we discussed, close that wage gap. She wants to make sure that she fights for paid family leave. Hillary is going to be a grandmother for the second time soon. And, we all know what it was like as women when we had to leave our newborn baby to go back to work within a certain period of time. And across the world, we're having a lot of opportunities to see other countries be much more ahead and making sure that paid family leave is important. She wants to make sure that there's affordable childcare available, which is a reality that we need as families, because one of the biggest fears of a lot of new moms, and I know this was true when I was raising my children, who are now 33 and 30, but when I had to go out to work, I wanted to make sure I had quality childcare available. And she remembers what it was like to be in that same situation. I think a woman has a perspective about things that are affecting the family that are going to be very helpful in the future. But she also is, as we know, going to look out to protect women's health and also reproductive rights. We can't go back in the past. We have to look forward. So, those are the things that I think that, Hillary is going to look forward to doing. And I'm not willing to look in the past. I feel like, all of those things have been hashed over in the.
Do you support her? Do you want her to be the first woman president? I mean, is that? Sometimes I do get the impression that is like the most important thing to some folks.
Well, I have to say that, being a woman and watching Hillary's competencies as she's gone through all the different areas that she has, all the different stages in her life, you learn so much from a different perspective. But I have to say, her competencies, with her training as being a state senator from New York, a U.S. senator from New York, and being the Secretary of State, and seeing firsthand how, the President Clinton worked together across the aisle to make things happen. She has a perspective that's much greater than just being a woman. And I have to say, being in the middle of all of this, she certainly has had, she's had to stand up for women, and she understands what it is that is going to help make families stronger. So, it's not just the fact that she's a woman, it's the competency she brings with her.
All right. Do you want to talk about ways to get involved now?
Yes,
or
I would
do you
love
want to
that.
Okay.
I would love that because, in Broward County, we have a number of different opportunities that as a volunteer you can get involved. I mean, it can be as simple as, getting trained in your own home to be doing a virtual phone bank that you can do at your convenience, because like we were
share
saying,
that document, or?
yes, that would
Okay.
be great.
All right, I'm going to show something on screen, but there's a copy of it also up on the BlueBroward website. You'll see a blog post with a replay of this session, which will be available pretty quickly, actually. I need to go back and edit out the introductory thing before we actually started. But this document is also attached to that blog post.
And David, a lot of people like to get involved and they like to be with each other when they're doing a phone bank. So we actually have physical phone banks that are going to be happening that are on this the sheet of paper that you can see from 5:30 to 8:30 on Wednesdays from January 28th, February 1st, and the 4th. It's going to be at the Century 21 Hanson location at 3010 East Commercial Boulevard. This gives you a chance to be there talking to the voters on a one-on-one, but it's also in a room of camaraderie of people who want to see the United States become stronger with a strong leader. So they're there because they support Hillary. So, that's one of the opportunities that are happening. Another one would be at the home of one of our volunteers in Broward County, Wanda Francis, on Monday, the 25th, which is just tomorrow. From 6 to 8:30, you can sign up and be a part of her phone bank, or you can sign up for voters registration. A lot of people in Florida, have not registered to vote. And it's important that we give them an opportunity. So there's going to be from Monday to Friday, including the 13th on, January 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th, and 29th, voters registration and signups that, once they have registered as a Democrat the first time, they're more likely to vote Democrat for the rest of their life. So that's so important. And they're going to have the voter registration signups at the Broward County Main Courthouse, which is at downtown Fort Lauderdale. And there's free parking that's going to be happening there, but that is going to be happening on Saturday the 6th of February and Sunday the 7th, and also Saturday the 13th. And we've got shifts available from 12 to 2 or 2 to 4 or 4 to 6 or 8 to 8. But the bottom line is you can go and you can meet new friends. You'll have a lot of fun. You're going to be helping people as well to get their voters registration, and it's a chance to get them on the right path. There's also going to be voter registration at the Fort Lauderdale Main County bus terminal. And if you want to get involved with any of that, canvassing, phone banking, you can contact Joanne Goodwin at jgoodwinhillary4broward@gmail.com.
And again, this information is up on bluebroward.org. You don't necessarily need to be writing it all down, but so go ahead and grab that document.
And there's going to be a lot of other events that are coming up on HillaryClinton.com//events. And on that site, you're going to actually be able to see, a couple of fundraisers that are coming up, because we've got some pretty exciting things coming up really soon,
And you can search by zip code, right? You can narrow it down to this area.
Yes, you can. The first one, Chelsea's coming to town. Right. As a matter of fact, she's going to be here on the 29th in Wilton Manors from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. The minimum ticket price is $500. And we're going to have a visit by President Clinton on February the 15th. And there's going to be events in Palm Beach County as well as Dade County. So there's a lot coming up in the future. But I want to let you know that, not only do we have these events coming up, but there's some things that I want to talk about that were just the mechanics of voting, because a lot of Broward County voters don't know that, we have a handout right there, but to vote for the presidential preference primary election, which is going to be on March 15th, they're going to have, prior to that, there will be the early voting period, which is going to be a period of 8 days, and it starts on the 5th of March and goes through the 12th of March. So you have lots of choices of how you can vote for Hillary Clinton or your Democratic candidate. The bottom line is that this early voting period, you can walk in and vote, but we're also encouraging people to vote on Election Day if you would like to. And of course, Election Day is the presidential primary is going to be on March 15th.
And I guess part of the point too, though, is they need to be registered as a Democrat by, what is it, February 16th in order to vote in that primary, right? So,
right.
So the people out there who are registered as independents, they may think, they're preserving their independence. They're gonna vote for the best person, but if you don't get on the rolls as
29 days
associated with the party, then you don't get to help determine what that ultimate choice is.
So
I mean, I would love to have an election someday where we actually had two good choices, a great Republican and a great Democrat, and we got to pick between those two. I don't think that's happened in my lifetime, but maybe someday.
Well, I just want to remind everyone, though, that in order to vote in the presidential primary election, you have to be registered by February 16th. It's 29 days before the election. And, if you, for the primary election itself, which is, you have to be registered to vote by August 1st. And if you want to vote in the general election itself, you have to be registered by October 11th.
Right.
So
August 1st would be for other primaries.
Right.
Not for,
and there's quite a few local and state primaries that are coming up. Right. But the general election is the most important date, of course. That is the date that we are going to vote either Republican, Democrat, or if there's an independent running, that would be on November 8th. So mark your calendars, because, you really want to make sure that if you want to guarantee your vote, you can vote by mail. We're encouraging people to go ahead and vote by mail.
This actually says November 5th here.
Let me see. The general election is, no, that would be the general election date. Oh, that's the early voting period from October 29th through November 5th. And it will be a period of 8 days. So in Florida, you'll remember Rick Scott in the past, he tried to limit the early voting period. And we want to make sure that everyone, if at the last second you're not feeling well and you can't get out to vote on Election Day, we want you to go ahead and vote by mail. That's the best way to bank the vote and make sure that the Democrat that you want to be elected is elected, because, we need your help on Election Day. We need your help at the early voting period. So we encourage a lot of people to go out and go ahead and vote by mail so we can bank your vote and then use your help through the election, because it's a very, very busy time for all of us who are actively involved.
Okay. Well, we should hit some of these questions that are coming in.
Okay.
So why should millennials vote for Hillary over Bernie?
That's a good question. I actually have 2 millennials in my family, and both of them are, both of them are female. So I'll start with why should a female millennial want to vote for Hillary? Well, she's going to really be the one that really makes sure that a priority is there for you to have equal pay for equal work. That's very important to Hillary. If you are a millennial that's working in a minimum wage job, she's going to try to make sure that you get the $15, minimum pay for, and she's also going to be the person who is going to be making sure that, when women are working an equal pay, equal job to a male, that they all get equal pay. And, we have fought for this through organizations over the years, but having her leadership is the reason why we need to make sure that millennials understand this is an important issue. This is a very important issue. And I have to say, I appreciate what Bernie's been doing, and I will tell you that that Hillary is actually the person that I just can't I can't
Right.
see anyone beating Hillary in the final election. That's
Right.
why we're for her.
Oh, we got to make sure that if she is the nominee, that energy from the Sanders campaign comes over and helps with the final victory.
Right. We're all going to work together. We definitely will. As a matter of fact, do you remember in 2008, after Obama got the nomination, we had a crossover to Obama luncheon at my house, and I invited all the Hillary volunteers. We had 576 people, who were volunteers,
I came to that.
and you probably came to it. And we were saying, hey, no matter what, the Democratic nominee is going to look out for the issues and the efforts of working class people, and we all need to be on board. So we all crossed over, and that's what we plan to do. We plan to invite all the Bernie people to come aboard with us.
I do think that Bernie Sanders has made a great contribution. I mean, a lot of Democrats have been afraid to be labeled a liberal, let alone a socialist, and just the fact that he's not willing to run away from what he believes, I think has been healthy, and it's shown how many people will respect that when you're honest about what you believe and what your values are. So I think that's a valuable contribution, regardless of the outcome of the primaries.
Well, I respect Bernie and the fact that he said, hey, we don't need to speak anymore about emails. We need to speak about the issues that are affecting all Americans. Right. But I respect him because he is all about, trying to keep the issues on point. Right. So we are going to be together. And like I said, vice versa. If he happens to be the nominee, we'll all be on the same side. We've got to elect the Democrats.
Anything could happen this election year. I do want to get to Doreen asked, the juvenile justice system is in need of improvement. What will Hillary do to improve this system? And I do want to preface this by saying, don't expect that Linda can speak to every aspect of the Hillary campaign or speak for Hillary on every issue. But do you have a response to that?
Well, I do think that, it's important to understand that that she's calling for an end of the era of the mass incarceration. She is opposing the private prison system right now, which is a highly profitable system, but it's not helping, the majority of people who are in it. And she's looking for common sense solutions to fixing our criminal justice system. And the bottom line is she understands that if you start going back a little bit farther, when a child is born and through age 4, she is for pre-K education. She feels that if you build a strong child who is given a nurturing environment and education, you can avoid the prison sentence on the other end of it. And that's the bottom line. She understands as a mother that, her child was very loved and privileged to be able to have a good education and the support of a family all the way through. And a lot of the families that are out there are struggling because they are trying to make a way, make a wage that can support a family as a one-person wage earner, and they're away from their families at great lengths, and their children are not getting the kind of attention that they would want to give them. So Hillary feels like, if we can get rid of this mass incarceration, this has just been, the private prison center system is out of control. And what we need to do is we need to do more rehabilitation and diversion from the criminal system. We need to have more drug courts where people who are first-time offenders can actually avoid being a part of getting an entrance into the system and then not being able to get out. So she understands that there are lots of things that we can do to divert people from going into the prison system itself.
Big picture question: why is there a perception that Hillary is more likely to be a status quo candidate, so just a continuation of the Obama administration, when Trump and also Bernie are out there as the change makers.
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, I'm not going to apologize for Obama and his policies. I think he has, really struck the hope and change, and he's done a lot of change. Of course, he's had a massive stonewalling that has been done by the Republicans, and so it's hard for him to get all of the programs that he's trying to get through. But I have to say, Hillary wants to build on what Obama has done. She wants to make sure that people have opportunities to be successful in today's workforce. She and I honestly tell you that I don't think she is status quo. I think she's going to be her own person. She's going to be a leader and trying to make changes that are appropriate. And she understands that you're steering a ship. As Obama had given an example, when you're trying to steer a ship, and you've got to take small steps, and then finally at the end, if you can't work through the system, we've always got the executive way. And I think that that was the last resort, but he tried very hard. But when you're running into a stone wall, and the Republicans have put up that stone wall, but I think that I think during the time that Hillary was a senator, she did reach across the aisles. And, even many of the Republican senators said, she was probably one of the hardest working senators in the Senate, and she was, that was a high compliment.
They actually
because
kind of liked her until she she started running for president.
They did. They liked her. And then all of a sudden, now that she's running for president, it's like, but the bottom line was, while they worked with her, they saw that she was a workhorse. She was not a show horse. And that's the important part, because, she has come from a background of putting her whole way through school and making a way for herself. She did not get a silver spoon in her mouth like Trump did. No father gave her $1 million when she became 20 years old or whatever. So she's made it herself.
Yeah, I worry that she is sort of the surefire candidate in sort of the way Charlie Crist was the surefire candidate for governor. That's my fear. But on the other hand, I do need to say some positive things. She came away from a defeat in the primary. She licked her wounds, and she came back and she served honorably as Secretary of State. Mm-hmm. So she moved on. She did the work. She's paid her dues, and I think that's something that we have to take into consideration as well, certainly.
Yes, she has. She has, because, she has worked so hard and has such a strong vita that, I don't think any of the other candidates can actually really compare, No. And it was all because of the fact that, she built one success on top of another success on top of another success. And it was all through hard work. Nothing was ever given to her easily. Right. So the whole efforts, I think one of her big things is that, she sees that this America is a place for opportunity. And she feels like, she has made it, right. But she's not going to forget, and she's going to reach back, and she's going to pull up other people to help them make it.
Well, I guess probably the bigger question is how is she going to change Congress? If we don't do that, then the best thing you can hope with Hillary or Bernie is gridlock. Mm-hmm. Is to basically, position of stopping bad things from happening, which is pretty important. But if we go into another 4 years with a Republican House and a Republican Senate, that's going to be tough.
Well, I think that because of her values that she holds dear, and these are the same values that a lot of them hold. So you have to find areas of commonality, things that you can take together and build on. And just as she was senator, in the Senate, she found areas that they could work together. Now, it's a whole different ballgame when you're president. But, I don't think she's going to be strong arming like President Johnson did. And look how much he got done by strong arming. But I do think that, nowadays, there are areas of common interest, and you build on those small areas of common interest first, get some legislation going, together, and then we all want America to be successful, whether you're
Help
Republican.
if the opposition was a little more rational, but
Absolutely. Well, I mean, they have been, and in that the Freedom Caucus and all of the fringes on that side over there are trying to hold back the majority. But I think, and a lot of the moderates are no longer running again.
Right.
But I think Hillary has proven herself to on a one-on-one basis that she can talk to them about common areas, and hey, we all want to see America strong.
It's hard to say she's not battle tested.
Yes, she certainly has been battle tested, and she knows this is going to be a guns a-blazing election.
Right.
So she knows that she has to give her 110%, and she needs all of the volunteers that are out there in Broward County and throughout the state of Florida, because we have always had a problem in bringing out the voters on election day or prior to election day. So this is where you can come in and be a part of this. You have a sphere of influence, even while you're talking to your family, your friends, to your neighbors. There's areas that you have in common with them, and you need to just become a little bit more well-versed as to why it's important to get them to understand what can be, because we have a future ahead of us, but you need to talk to them about, making education attainable for all people. You need to talk to them about, the out-of-pocket healthcare costs. She wants to fight to bring down some of the costs. She's not going to repeal the Affordable Care Act, but she's actually going to, make tweaks so that the pharmaceutical industry is accountable to rein in, their drug costs for American families. She'll fight to prevent gun violence. I mean, these are things that are conversation starters with your neighbors. I mean, I think she's for common sense safety, policies, including comprehensive background checks, for people who are trying to get these guns. And she's wants to keep these military style weapons off the streets. And I think that's all of us wants that to happen,
We do have one more question out there, which is what will Hillary do to promote women's reproductive rights?
Well, I can tell you, her past has always been on the forefront of protecting women's reproductive rights. And, a quick story, when I was pregnant with my first daughter, and we were marching for ERA, up the hill of Tallahassee and everything. And Kristen was kicking the whole way up there. and I said, I'm doing this for you because, it's important that women and their daughters, have control over their bodies. And Hillary has always been, right on the forefront of protecting those rights. We don't want to go back before Roe v. Wade. That was, she's going to have an opportunity to appoint the new Supreme Court justices who come through in the next 4 years, next 8 years probably. And that is one of the most important issues to protect, all of the basic rights that we as women and we as America enjoy. And we want someone who, stands up and says, this is important. So she's going to appoint she's going to put people up who are definitely strong in all of those areas. Okay.
Closing argument. Why should anybody watching this get off the fence? You can talk to me.
Okay.
Tell me, why should I get off the fence?
Why should you get off the fence? Well, first of all, David, I know that you're passionate about the Democratic Party, and I know that you're passionate about seeing right and not wrong. And it probably angers you when you see the rhetoric that's coming out of the Republican side. And they have ramped it up to make it sound like they're going to make America great again. And they're absolutely not. It would be a step back to the 50s as opposed to a step forward to, a whole new generation of young people coming up, our millennials, all of the constituencies who have been hurt in the past. We don't want to see that to be our history coming forward. So I was going to say, if you have an opportunity to make sure that a Democratic presidential primary is actually going to be filled with enthusiastic voters, you would do everything that you can to get them out.
Yeah.
And why should you vote for Hillary? Because I think she's the most qualified candidate. And I think that, we all want someone who's going to be forwarding, our issues, as opposed to someone who's going to take us back to the 50s.
Okay.
So you're passionate. So I wouldn't sit back and just let that happen.
All right.
Make it happen.
All right. Yeah. Got to get in gear. All right. We're going to wrap up. I do want to say a couple of last words about BlueBroward, because the site is there for the community. Anybody who signs up and has an account on there can post events, can post to the blog. I don't have very many people actually taking advantage of those features. And also, if there's anybody out there who would like to volunteer a few hours a week to maybe help with posting of events that people email to me as opposed to posting themselves, or help recontact some of the Democratic clubs that used to post events to the calendar and have fallen by the wayside. And sometimes the secretary of the club changes, that person knew how to do it, and they don't pass on the password, and things just decay after a while. So I could use some of your help, but I also want to make it a valuable resource for Democratic victory in 2016, and as long as it makes sense to keep it alive. So there's a lot of things that have happened since this got started in 2004.
Mm-hmm.
So that was before Barack Obama and Organizing for America, and a lot of other things came along. So in some ways, there's an embarrassment of riches out there. The one thing that this site has is that it's specific to the Broward community. And I think that's worth something, if we can make it worth something.
And I thank you for doing that, because, David, because of your leadership, this has been an area that I've used quite extensively to get out the messaging. And thank you so much for doing that.
Okay.
We really appreciate it.
She does email this stuff to me. She doesn't post it herself. I try and get her to post it herself, but we'll work on her. Thanks everybody who tuned in, and share the replay link with a friend. Have a great week.